She grew up knowing what it meant to have very little. From a young age, life taught her that nothing came easy. The house she lived in was small, with cracked walls and a roof that leaked during heavy rain. Still, she kept it clean, because it was the only place she could call home. She learned early that complaining would not change anything. So she stayed quiet and worked hard instead. Her parents passed away when she was still very young. After that, life became even harder. She moved between relatives who were already struggling themselves. Some were kind, some were cold, but none could really care for her the way parents do. By the time she reached her teenage years, she was already working small jobs to help pay for food and school supplies. She never dreamed big, because dreaming felt painful when survival was the main goal. She was not weak, though. Inside her lived a quiet strength. Even on days when her heart felt heavy, she woke up early, tied her worn shoes, and went out to work. She cleaned houses, helped in small shops, and did whatever honest work she could find. People often ignored her, but she never let that turn her bitter. She believed that if she stayed kind, life would one day show kindness back to her. When she met him, she thought her life was finally changing. He spoke softly and listened when she talked. For the first time, someone seemed to see her, not just her poverty. He told her stories about dreams, about building a future together, about leaving the past behind. She believed him because she wanted to believe. After years of loneliness, his attention felt like warmth after a long winter. She gave him her trust without holding anything back. She shared her fears, her pain, and the memories she rarely spoke about. He promised her that he would never leave, that he would stand beside her no matter how hard life became. Those words meant everything to her. They filled the empty spaces in her heart where hope once lived. Slowly, she began to imagine a different life. Not a rich one, but a peaceful one. A life where she would not have to worry about tomorrow all the time. She thought love would be enough. She thought loyalty mattered more than money. She was wrong, but she did not know it yet. As time passed, small changes appeared. He became distant. His calls were shorter, his visits less frequent. When she asked if something was wrong, he brushed it off with excuses. She wanted to trust him, so she did. She told herself that everyone gets busy sometimes. She told herself, love means patience. One day, she heard the truth from someone else, not from him. She learned that he had found someone richer, someone who could offer him comfort and status. Everything he promised her was suddenly worthless. The man who once spoke of forever had already chosen another path. When she confronted him, he did not deny it. He simply said he needed a better life. Those words broke her in a way she had never felt before. She did not cry in front of him. She just stood there, silent, as if her body had forgotten how to react. After he left, the tears came like a storm. All the pain she had carried since childhood came rushing back at once. She felt foolish for believing. She felt small and unwanted. For days, she barely ate. She went to work, but moved like a shadow. People spoke to her, but she heard nothing. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment in her mind. She wondered where she went wrong. She wondered if being poor made her easy to leave. There were moments when she felt angry, not just at him, but at life itself. She had done everything right. She worked hard. She stayed honest. She loved deeply. Yet, she was the one left behind. It felt unfair, but life had never promised fairness. Still, something inside her refused to completely give up. Even in her heartbreak, she continued to wake up and go to work. She told herself that pain would not stop her from surviving. She could not afford to fall apart for too long. Bills still needed to be paid. Food still needed to be bought. She started avoiding places that reminded her of him. She changed her routine, walking different streets, taking longer routes just to keep her thoughts busy. Sometimes she talked to herself quietly, reminding herself that she was still alive, still standing. It was not healing yet, but it was the beginning of endurance. People around her did not know her story. They only saw a quiet young woman who worked hard and spoke little. They did not see the broken heart she carried or the nights she cried into her pillow. She learned to hide her pain well because showing it made her feel weak. One evening, after a long day, she sat alone in her room, holding an old photo of her parents. She whispered that she was tired, that she did not know how much more she could take. But she also promised them that she would not give up. That promise became her anchor. She did not know it yet, but this heartbreak was not the end of her story. It was the moment that would quietly prepare her for a meeting that would change everything. For now, all she knew was pain, survival, and the need to keep moving forward. Even when her heart felt heavy, that was how her journey stood at the end of this chapter. A poor girl carrying deep heartbreak, standing at the edge of a future she could not yet see. Life had taken something from her, but it had not taken her strength. And soon, though she had no idea, fate would step in where hope seemed lost. She continued with her life quietly after the heartbreak. But she could not ignore the emptiness in her days. She worked hard, saved every little coin she could, and avoided thinking about love or trust. Then, one morning, she stepped into a small shop to deliver a package. And that is where she first noticed him. He was not like anyone she had ever met. His clothes were simple but clean, and he carried himself with a calm confidence. His eyes seemed to look deeper than appearances, as if he could see the truth about people. She felt nervous around him at first. It was not the usual type of nervousness she felt around strangers. This felt different, quiet and careful. They exchanged few words that day, mostly polite greetings. But something about him stayed in her mind. She wondered why someone so composed and serious seemed different from everyone else she met. She was used to people smiling for show or pretending to care, but he did not do either. He simply listened when she spoke, and he spoke only when necessary. That kind of presence felt rare to her. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes she would see him walking slowly in the park near her small apartment. Sometimes he would appear at the same cafe, where she helped clean tables. Each time, their conversation grew a little longer. She discovered he was kind in small, unnoticed ways. He helped elderly people with their bags, paused to pick up trash, or gave a little extra tip to street vendors. These were not grand gestures, but they showed a person with quiet goodness. She did not know why, but she started looking forward to seeing him. Her heart, which had felt broken and empty, began to stir in small ways. There was no rushing feeling of love yet, only a gentle curiosity. She found herself smiling when he smiled, even if no one else noticed. The days felt lighter, though she tried to pretend to herself that it was just coincidence. One rainy afternoon, she saw him sitting under a small awning outside a closed shop. He looked drenched, though he tried to stay dry. She rushed to offer her umbrella, forgetting herself entirely. He accepted it quietly and smiled, not in a boastful way, but in a way that made her feel seen. She noticed the careful way he spoke, not too many words, but enough to make someone feel understood. From that day, their connection grew slowly. They talked about everyday things, books, walks, small dreams, but she never felt pressured to share more than she could. She had learned caution after heartbreak, but with him, she felt a sense of safety. She could breathe when she was around him, and that comfort was new. One evening, he invited her to accompany him on a walk to the river nearby. The city lights reflected on the water, and the night was calm. He asked her about her dreams, not with judgment or expectation, but with genuine curiosity. She spoke about her hopes quietly, about wanting stability, peace, and perhaps one day, a life that felt like home. He listened without interrupting, which was a rarity she had begun to treasure. He shared pieces of his own life, though carefully. He told her about challenges he had faced, about people who judged him for reasons he could not change. He never mentioned money or wealth directly. For her, he was a man who had faced struggles too, and that made him real. She did not know yet that he had a vast fortune hidden behind his simple life. All she saw was a man who treated her with respect and patience. Days turned into weeks, and small moments began to mean more. He remembered the smallest details she shared, like the way she liked tea with little sugar, or how she hummed softly while working. She noticed these things too, how he remembered her words, her gestures, her fears. These little acts of attention made her heart trust slowly again. She had thought trust was lost to her forever. They started spending more time together in small ways. She helped him with errands, and he accompanied her on long walks, sometimes just to talk, sometimes just to be silent together. Neither of them rushed feelings. Each day was a step closer, not with dramatic gestures, but with quiet companionship. She found herself laughing more, feeling lighter, and imagining a life where pain did not dominate every moment. However, she kept her guard up. Years of hardship had taught her to be cautious. She did not speak of her past heartbreak to him, fearing it would change the way he saw her. She wanted to be strong, and she feared being seen as fragile. Even though he made her heart stir, she reminded herself that life could be cruel, and caution was necessary. One day, as they walked through the market, a little boy fell and scraped his knee. She rushed to help him, and he followed, offering calm words and a handkerchief. Watching her act with kindness and care, he felt something shift inside. He admired how naturally she helped others without thinking of reward or recognition. Her strength was quiet but real, and it struck him deeply. After the incident, he sat on a bench, watching the boy return to his parents. She laughed softly, a sound that felt like sunlight after rain. He looked at her and realized he had begun caring more than he had expected. Her simplicity, her honesty, her courage to keep moving forward despite life's hardships. It all left an impression on him he could not ignore. Evenings became their shared time. Sometimes they walked, sometimes they sat silently, and sometimes they talked. Each conversation revealed more about the person inside beyond appearances. She started feeling a warmth she had thought she lost forever. She started believing that perhaps trust could grow again. She began to hope that a human connection, built slowly and sincerely, could exist for her after all. But life was never simple. She continued her jobs, managing her small life with careful attention, unaware that he had noticed every small struggle she endured. He saw the resilience in her, the ability to smile despite hardship, and though he did not yet reveal his wealth, he began thinking about ways to make her life easier, not with gifts, but by finding chances for her to have stability and peace at night. She would return to her small apartment, exhausted, but with a small spark in her heart. She found herself replaying conversations, moments, and laughter. Slowly she realized she had begun to trust someone again. She had begun to believe that there might be a life beyond the heartbreak, a life where she could feel safe, valued, and understood. She did not yet know the full story about him, but she could sense that he was different. There was honesty in his silence, sincerity in his gestures, and patience in his approach. She felt a gentle comfort she had not felt in years. And though she did not dare to dream too high, she began imagining a future where loneliness and betrayal might finally be replaced with understanding and care. This was the start of something quiet but powerful. Not a whirlwind of romance, not a dramatic revelation, but a slow rebuilding of trust and hope. For her, it was enough for now. And for him, he began realizing that she was a rare soul, one whose heart had been broken but not destroyed, one whose life, though simple, held a depth he had never encountered before. The city around them continued to rush, full of people who never noticed the small, tender moments they shared. But within those moments, seeds of something remarkable were being planted. A bond built on patience, respect, and quiet care. For the first time since heartbreak, she felt seen, heard, and safe. And though the future remained unknown, the present had begun to feel a little lighter, a little brighter, a little full of possibility as weeks turned into months. Their connection grew quietly, almost unnoticed by the world around them. The girl continued her daily routines, yet now her days held a small light. She looked forward to their conversations even if they were simple and unremarkable to anyone else. Each interaction added a small layer of trust, a tiny reassurance that maybe, just maybe, life could offer kindness again. He, too, felt the change inside himself. He had always been cautious with people, aware of those who would only seek him for his wealth, status, or influence. Yet with her, he found something different. He admired her resilience, her honesty, and the way she carried herself despite hardships. He noticed how she treated people around her, from street vendors to neighbors, with respect and genuine care. It fascinated him, and he realized that he had begun to care deeply without even intending to. Their days together were filled with small moments. Sometimes they walked through quiet streets, sharing stories about childhood memories. Other times they sat in the park watching children play, or shared a simple meal while discussing their hopes for the future. She never knew about his wealth, and he never revealed it. He wanted to see her for who she truly was, not for what he could offer her. She began to confide in him more, though cautiously. Her past heartbreak was always at the back of her mind, a reminder that trust could be fragile. But he listened patiently, never rushing, never judging. When she spoke about her fears, he responded with understanding rather than solutions. It was the first time in years that she felt someone could truly see her. Not the image of herself she projected to survive, but her real, vulnerable self. One day, she received news that a distant relative was ill, and she needed to travel to help. The thought of leaving filled her with worry, both for her relative and for the brief separation from the man who had begun to occupy her thoughts. When she told him, he offered to accompany her, though he could not. Instead, he gave her advice, simple words of encouragement, and promised he would be there when she returned. She felt a warmth in his words that reminded her that she was not alone. During her absence, she realized how much she had come to rely on his presence. The city felt emptier without the small moments they shared. She missed his calm voice, the way he remembered little details about her life, and even the quiet silences that felt comfortable rather than awkward. She understood now that he had become important to her, though she did not dare label her feelings just yet. Upon her return, she found him waiting as usual, with a quiet smile. There was no dramatic greeting, no words of grand declaration, just a gentle acknowledgement of her return. It was in that quietness that she realized something profound. Love did not always arrive in fireworks. Sometimes, it arrived in the steadiness of someone who truly cared. The girl slowly began to let herself hope. She allowed herself to dream of a life that was not defined solely by hardship. She imagined simple joys, a warm meal, laughter without worry, a shared sunset. She imagined being seen for who she was, not her poverty or past heartbreak. With him, these dreams began to feel possible. One afternoon, as they walked along a riverbank, he spoke about his childhood. He spoke of challenges and mistakes, of learning to trust, and of the loneliness that sometimes accompanied his life. She listened, captivated not by the details but by the honesty in his voice. There was no pretense, no desire to impress. It was simply truth, and it drew her closer to him. She realized that truth was the foundation of trust, and she was learning to trust again. Their bond deepened with shared experiences. She helped him in small ways, offering advice, kindness, and her presence during stressful times. In turn, he supported her quietly, offering comfort and understanding without demanding anything. These exchanges, simple and unremarkable to an outsider, became the pillars of their growing connection. Despite her cautious heart, she found herself smiling more freely. Laughter returned to her life in small doses. She began to notice beauty around her, the colors of the market, the smell of rain, the songs of birds in the morning. Life, which had once felt dull and heavy, began to feel lighter. She could not explain why, but the presence of someone who genuinely cared brought a sense of peace she had not known since childhood. He too felt the change. His life had been filled with people seeking favors, recognition, or wealth. But she, with her simplicity and sincerity, challenged him in ways no one else had. She reminded him that connection was not about status, money, or power. It was about understanding, patience, and small acts of kindness. Each day he realized more deeply how much he valued her presence. One evening, as they sat on a bench watching the sunset, she spoke of her dreams in a quiet voice. She did not ask for much, only stability, respect, and perhaps a chance to build a life she could call her own. He listened intently, noting the grace and strength in her words. In that moment, he silently vowed to protect that hope. Not through grand gestures, but through unwavering support and respect. Their days continued in this quiet rhythm. She began to see that trust could grow slowly, without pressure, without rush. He began to see that love could be cultivated through patience and understanding, rather than wealth or status. They were learning from each other, healing together, though neither would have named it as such. One day she fell ill and could not work. He came to check on her, bringing simple food and medicine. She resisted at first, not wanting to impose, but he insisted gently, saying that caring for someone was not an imposition if done sincerely. She accepted, humbled by his kindness, realized that she had never experienced such selfless care before. Through these small acts, their bond became stronger. They did not need grand declarations or dramatic gestures. The quiet moments, the shared laughter, the patient listening, and the gentle care became the foundation of something profound. It was not love announced with fanfare, but love built through everyday presence and attention. She began to believe that perhaps life could offer happiness again, that trust could be rebuilt, and that heartbreak did not have to define her forever. And he began to understand that love was not about perfection or grand plans, but about presence, understanding, and shared humanity. As months passed, they continued to navigate life side by side. There were no guarantees, no promises yet of what the future held. But they had found something rare, a connection grounded in respect, honesty, and quiet care. It was in this connection that both of them began to heal, to dream, and to hope. The girl, once heartbroken and cautious, was learning to trust again. The man, once wary and guarded, was learning to care deeply without reservation. And in this shared journey, they discovered that sometimes the most profound relationships grow not in moments of drama, but in the steady, patient unfolding of everyday life. Together, they were building a bond that could weather challenges, heartbreak, and uncertainty, one small, meaningful moment at a time. Months of quiet companionship passed, and the girl felt a sense of comfort she had not known for years. She laughed more easily, walked with a lighter step, and allowed herself small dreams. She trusted him, though cautiously, and he trusted her enough to let her into parts of his life, but never the full picture. He still held back the truth about his wealth, thinking it was important to see her for who she really was. One bright morning, they went to a local market together. It was crowded, noisy, and full of life. She loved the vibrancy of the place. He seemed to enjoy her delight in small things: a ripe mango, fresh bread, the sound of children laughing. They walked slowly, talking and observing, each lost in the comfort of the other's presence. As they stopped at a street vendor, a man approached her suddenly. He seemed familiar, but before she could react, he handed her a letter. She opened it with shaking hands and read the words that made her heart pound. It was from someone who had seen her with him before and recognized the man she had been spending time with. The letter revealed the truth. He was not the simple man she thought. He was a billionaire, wealthy beyond imagination. And his life was nothing like the one he had shared with her. Her hands trembled as she looked at him. She could not speak at first. She felt a swirl of emotions: shock, betrayal, confusion, and a creeping sense of fear. For months, she had allowed herself to trust him, to care for him. And now she realized that the foundation of their relationship was built on something she had not known. How much of what he had shared was true? How much was hidden? She wanted to scream, but no sound came. He saw the letter in her hands and understood immediately. He did not speak at first, allowing her to process the revelation in her own way. When she finally found her voice, it was quiet but firm. "Why didn't you tell me? All this time you let me believe something that wasn't real?" He took a deep breath and looked at her with sincerity. "I wanted to tell you," he said softly, "but I needed to see the real you. I needed to know that your care for me was for who I am, not what I have. I never wanted you to feel like you were with me for my money. I had to be sure that when we grew close, it was because of trust, not circumstance." She felt a mixture of anger and sadness. "So, all this time, you lied to me?" He shook his head slowly. "I did not lie about who I am. I only did not reveal everything. I wanted to protect you and to see you without the shadow of my wealth influencing anything. I wanted us to connect without any expectation, without pressure. Her mind raced. She remembered all the moments they had shared, the walks, the quiet talks, the laughter, the patience, the small kindnesses. Were those moments fake because he had not told her? Or were they real as the trust and comfort she had felt? She did not know what to believe. Tears came unbidden. She felt a wave of betrayal, even though she knew he had not harmed her intentionally. Her heart, once broken, felt a new ache, the ache of trust, challenged, the ache of uncertainty. She wanted to run, to escape the confusion, but she could not move. Part of her wanted to yell, part of her wanted to cry, and part of her wanted to understand. He stepped closer, cautiously. I understand if you feel hurt. I understand if you need time. I do not want to pressure you. I only want you to know the truth now, because you deserve it. She looked at him, studying his face for any sign of deceit, but found none. Only honesty. Only care. Only the man she had come to know in countless small, meaningful moments. And yet the weight of his hidden life pressed down on her, making her feel fragile and exposed. For days she avoided him. She could not bring herself to speak, not because she did not care, but because the shock and hurt needed time to settle. She walked the streets alone, thinking of every memory, every smile, every gesture, and trying to understand how to reconcile the truth with what she had felt. Her mind swung between anger and longing, mistrust and hope. Meanwhile, he respected her silence. He did not attempt to force contact or explanations. He waited, quietly hopeful that time would allow her to see the honesty in his actions. He remembered the pain of his past, how people often left when they discovered his wealth. He feared losing her now, yet he knew that patience was the only way. One afternoon, she found herself near the river where they had often walked together. Memories of those simple moments, the laughter, the quiet conversations, the feeling of being understood, overwhelmed her. She realized that despite the revelation, the man she had known had been real in the ways that mattered most. His care, his patience, his honesty in conversation, those were not lies. She returned to him, tentative, unsure of what words to speak. He greeted her gently, with no demand, no expectation, only a quiet presence. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, and spoke. I don't know what to say. I am hurt, but I don't want to lose what we have. He nodded slowly. I do not want to lose it either. But I understand if you need time to process. I will not rush you. I will be here, waiting whenever you are ready. They spent the afternoon sitting by the river, mostly in silence, occasionally speaking in soft, careful words. The tension eased slightly, replaced by a fragile understanding. She began to see that while the truth had shaken her, it did not erase the moments that had built their bond. The laughter, the shared dreams, the patient listening, all of it remained. Even if now accompanied by complexity, over the next few weeks, they gradually rebuilt their connection. It was not easy. There were moments of doubt, moments of tears, and moments of frustration. But there were also moments of understanding, forgiveness, and renewed trust. She saw that his concealment was not meant to harm her, but to protect both their hearts. She saw that trust could be challenged and yet survive if nurtured with patience and honesty. One evening, as they walked through the quiet streets after the market had closed, she spoke about her feelings. I was angry, but I think I understand now. You wanted to see me for me, not for what you have. And maybe that was brave in its own way. He reached for her hand gently. It was not easy for me either. I risked losing the one person who mattered most to me because I could not be completely open. But I also learned something important. Love is not just about words or wealth. It is about trust, respect, and the courage to be honest, even when it is difficult. She squeezed his hand, feeling a warmth and comfort she had feared lost. I want to trust you again, she said quietly. It will take time, but I want to try. He smiled softly. Then we will take the time we need. Together. That night, she lay in her small apartment, reflecting on everything that had happened. The revelation of his wealth had been a shock, but it had also shown her that human connection was deeper than appearances. She realized that love could survive honesty, even if honesty came late. She understood that trust could be rebuilt, even after a fracture. If both hearts were willing to try, the days that followed were gentle but deliberate. They spent time together, slowly rebuilding what had been shaken. She learned to navigate the new reality with awareness, but without fear. He learned to balance honesty with patience, to offer space without withdrawing care. Each day strengthened their bond, proving that even challenges could become opportunities for growth and understanding. And so, they moved forward not in a whirlwind of dramatic confessions, but in the steady, patient rhythm of shared life. The revelation had tested them, shaken them, and made them question everything. Yet it had also brought clarity, showing that the foundation of their bond, care, respect, and genuine connection was strong enough to endure. Their journey continued, with both hearts open to possibility, ready to face the next chapter together. Cautiously, but with hope. Time passed slowly, gently, allowing both of them to heal and grow in ways they had never anticipated. The girl, once broken by betrayal and hardship, found her heart opening in small, cautious ways. The man, who had kept so much hidden to protect her, learned that honesty and patience could cultivate trust stronger than any wealth could buy. Together, they discovered the quiet beauty of love, built on understanding, respect, and shared humanity. They continued their daily routines, but now their lives intersected in ways that brought comfort and joy. She still worked in her small jobs, yet each day held moments of warmth and connection. He remained a presence beside her, attentive without intrusion, supportive without control. Their friendship deepened, transforming into something unspoken but profound. One evening, they walked along the riverbank where they had spent so many afternoons together. The sun was low, casting a warm glow on the water. She carried a small basket of fresh bread she had bought from the market, and he carried nothing but his presence. Neither spoke immediately, content with the quiet rhythm of their steps. The air felt soft, as if the world had paused to let them exist in this small moment together. She glanced at him, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and love. "I never imagined I could feel safe again," she said softly. "After everything, I thought my heart would always be broken." He looked at her with steady eyes. "Your heart has always been strong. It's your courage that allowed us to build this bond. And now I see that love isn't just about grand gestures or wealth. It's about patience, understanding, and being present." Her eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of relief and hope. She had survived betrayal and hardship, and now she realized that the life she had once imagined, a life of simple joy and genuine connection, was within reach. And it was not just a dream. It was unfolding before her eyes. Days turned into weeks, and their bond deepened in quiet, meaningful ways. They shared meals, walked through markets, helped neighbors, and spent evenings talking about their dreams. She discovered a sense of confidence in herself she had never known. She realized that she could be loved not despite her past, but in spite of it, and that love could grow even from pain. He, too, felt the transformation within himself. He had always lived cautiously, wary of people who wanted to take advantage of his wealth. But with her, he found freedom. He could be himself without fear, and he could witness someone else's true self without judgment. Her resilience, kindness, and patience became a mirror, reflecting the best in him, encouraging him to grow and open his heart. One afternoon, they decided to visit a small village near the river. It was quiet, with cobblestone streets and children playing in the sun. They spent the day helping at a local school, teaching the children simple lessons and sharing laughter. The girl laughed more freely than she had in years, enjoying the innocence and joy of the children. He watched her with admiration, realizing that the simplest moments often held the deepest meaning. On their way back, they sat under an old tree, sharing bread and talking about the future. "I never thought I could dream again," she said. "But now, I imagine a life where I'm not just surviving, but truly living. And I want you to be part of that life." He reached for her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "I want that too. I want us to continue building a life together, one step at a time. No pressure, no rush, just patience and care." She smiled, a radiant smile that had once seemed impossible for her to show. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that trust had been rebuilt and that love could flourish even after heartbreak. It was not the kind of love that came quickly or easily, but it was enduring and real. As the months passed, their relationship grew stronger. They faced small challenges, misunderstandings, moments of doubt, and the occasional fear of the unknown, but each obstacle was met with communication and empathy. She learned to voice her feelings without fear, and he learned to listen without judgment. Their connection deepened with each shared experience, creating a bond that could weather the storms of life. One evening, as they walked through the city streets, hand in hand, the girl looked up at him and said, "I never thought I could feel this happy. After everything I've been through, I never imagined I could trust again, let alone love." He squeezed her hand gently. "Your strength has always been remarkable. Love is not about avoiding pain. It's about finding someone who stands with you through it, and I will stand with you always." Her heart swelled with a mixture of gratitude, love, and hope. She realized that her journey, which had begun with heartbreak and hardship, had led her to a place of understanding, trust, and genuine connection. She had learned that life could be kind, even when it seemed cruel, and that love could grow slowly, patiently, and enduringly. As the night settled over the city, they sat together under the glow of streetlights, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams. Their bond was no longer fragile. It was strong, built on a foundation of honesty, patience, and mutual respect. They understood that life would continue to have challenges, but they were ready to face them together. The girl, once broken and cautious, had found love not through wealth or grand gestures, but through understanding, patience, and genuine connection. The man, once guarded and wary, had learned that vulnerability and trust could bring profound joy. Together they had transformed pain into possibility, heartbreak into hope, and loneliness into a shared life of warmth and care. In the quiet moments, they often reflected on their journey. She would recall the hardships of her past, the moments of betrayal, and the times she had doubted herself. He would remember his caution, his fears of being misunderstood, and his desire to find someone who cared for him for who he was. And together, they would smile, knowing that those experiences had shaped them, guided them, and ultimately led them to each other. Their story was not about wealth or status, but about the human heart, the capacity to heal, to trust, and to love again. It was a story of resilience, patience, and the quiet power of genuine connection. And as they walked side by side into the future, they carried with them the lessons of the past, the joy of the present, and the hope of a life built together, step by step. Heart-to-heart life moved forward in a way that felt both steady and extraordinary for the girl. After months of building trust, healing from past pain, and finding comfort in a bond that had grown slowly and surely, she began to see the world differently. The hardships of her past no longer defined her. Instead, they had shaped her strength, resilience, and capacity to love with caution yet fully. Each day brought small joys, laughter, and the quiet happiness that comes from feeling truly understood. She continued her work, not because she had to, but because she wanted to maintain the independence she had fought so hard for. She took pride in her ability to manage her life, no matter the circumstances. The man remained a constant presence, supporting her without controlling her, encouraging her growth, while also learning from her resilience and patience. Together, they were discovering a rhythm of life that was deeply human, built on understanding and mutual respect. One morning, as the sun rose over the city, they decided to visit a small community center that needed help. It was a place filled with children and elderly people who relied on volunteers for support and care. She loved the energy and warmth of the community. He admired her natural ability to connect with people, to bring light into their day, without expecting anything in return. They spent hours helping, laughing, and sharing stories, finding fulfillment in the simple act of giving. The girl noticed how the man interacted with the people there. He was patient, kind, and attentive, but he did not seek recognition. He listened to their concerns, helped where he could, and allowed them to feel valued without using his influence or wealth. She realized that this side of him, the genuine care, the humility, the patience, was the foundation of why she loved him, not the life he could provide. It was the man, not the status, that mattered. As they walked home that evening, carrying a few small gifts for the children and elderly, she spoke softly about her feelings. "I never imagined that life could feel like this," she said. "I used to think happiness was impossible for me, but now I see that it's not about wealth or luck. It's about the people who stand beside you and the choices you make every day." He nodded, his eyes reflecting warmth and understanding. "You've taught me the same thing," he replied. "Love and happiness are not given by grand gestures or money. They are built slowly, with patience, trust, and care. You have shown me that the simplest moments can be the most meaningful." Her heart swelled with gratitude and love. For the first time in her life, she felt safe to dream beyond survival, to imagine a future filled with stability, laughter, and shared purpose. She no longer feared heartbreak as she once did. Instead, she felt empowered by the lessons of the past and strengthened by the bond she had nurtured with him. Weeks passed, each filled with shared experiences and quiet growth. They continued volunteering, exploring the city, and helping those around them in meaningful ways. She found joy in small things, preparing meals, listening to stories, walking through markets, and seeing the man beside her, supportive, caring, and genuinely engaged in life. Their days were filled with a gentle rhythm of companionship and understanding. One afternoon, they attended a small festival in a neighboring village. The air was full of music, laughter, and the smell of food. Children ran past them with painted faces, and families shared smiles and stories. The girl felt a deep sense of belonging, not just within the festival, but within the life she had built alongside him. She realized that joy could be found in the ordinary moments, in shared laughter and presence. And in the feeling of being truly known, he noticed the way her eyes lit up as she interacted with the children, her laughter ringing clear and free. He realized that the depth of his feelings had grown beyond mere admiration. He loved her, not for what she could offer, not for her resilience alone, but for the warmth, kindness, and authenticity she brought into every moment. She had become an inseparable part of his world, and he felt a desire to protect and nurture the life they were building together. That evening, they sat on a quiet hill overlooking the village, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, and the air held the calm of the approaching night. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. In that moment, words were unnecessary. The silence spoke volumes, a language of trust, connection, and unspoken love. They spoke softly about the future, not in grandiose plans, but in simple hopes and intentions. She spoke of wanting to continue helping others, to maintain her independence, and to build a life filled with small, meaningful joys. He spoke of standing beside her, supporting her dreams, and ensuring that she always felt valued, respected, and loved. Their conversation was a promise, not of wealth or extravagance, but of shared life and mutual care. The girl realized how much she had grown. The heartbreak of her past, once a source of fear and pain, had become a teacher. She had learned patience, resilience, and the ability to trust again. She understood that love could be gentle, gradual, and deeply sustaining. And in him she had found not just a partner, but a companion who saw her, valued her, and nurtured her heart. They continued building their life together, facing challenges with communication and empathy, and celebrating small victories and joys. The man encouraged her independence, admired her strength, and supported her growth without controlling it. She reciprocated with understanding, patience, and care, creating a balance that strengthened their bond day by day. As the seasons changed, their connection deepened further. They celebrated birthdays quietly, helped neighbors, and took small trips to explore the countryside. Each experience, no matter how small, became a building block in the foundation of their love. They laughed, learned, and faced uncertainties together, discovering that the strength of their bond lay not in grandeur, but in the steady, patient care they offered each other daily. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park, she looked at him and said, "I used to think my heart could never trust again. I used to think love was impossible. But now I see that it's real, not because of wealth or luck, but because of patience, honesty, and care. And I am grateful that I found it with you." He held her hand gently, feeling the depth of their shared journey. "I am grateful too. We have built something rare, not in a day, but slowly, with trust, understanding, and unwavering support. And I promise to continue nurturing this bond every day for as long as we live." Her heart, once fragile and wary, felt whole. She realized that love could grow after pain, that trust could be rebuilt, that life could offer joy even after the harshest trials. Together, they had transformed past heartbreak into hope, loneliness into companionship, and hardship into a shared life filled with warmth and meaning. As night fell, they sat together under the stars, silent yet fully present. The world around them faded, leaving only the comfort of their connection. She felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that the journey had been difficult, but the destination was worth every challenge. Love, patience, and understanding had guided them, and they were ready to face the future together, heart to heart, step by step, building a life of quiet, enduring happiness.